Penniless and with shattered dreams, a man returned to his hometown in 1881 after 2 failed attempts at opening a candy store. With a desperate need for funds, he turned to his uncles for assistance, only to be met with rejection and humiliation. Although the rejection was harsh, he didn't let it crush his spirit. Instead, he held onto his vision and left his uncle's house with a purpose. He was a man on a mission. It's remarkable to think that chocolate, which was once a luxury exclusively enjoyed by the wealthy, would eventually become accessible to the masses at affordable prices. The incredible story's credit belongs to one man, Milton Hershey, who founded the largest chocolate manufacturer and emerged as the face of the chocolate industry. On September 13, 1857, Milton Hershey was born in Derry Township, Pennsylvania. His parents, Henry and Fanny Hershey, were farmers who struggled to make ends meet, largely due to Henry's unsuccessful business ventures. At the age of 2, Milton Hershey's life took a sharp turn when his father sold their farm to chase the oil boom in Pennsylvania. The lure of striking it rich in the oil industry was irresistible, as oil was rapidly becoming a necessity in the lives of Americans. However, Henry Hershey's obsession with finding oil proved to be his downfall. He spent all his money digging for oil for 2 years, but it only left his family in extreme poverty. To make matters worse, Fanny, Henry's wife, was pregnant with their second child. Amidst this struggle, Fanny's 2 brothers visited Pennsylvania to check up on their sister and young nephew. What they saw upon their arrival was a heartbreaking sight. Fanny appeared pale, and little Milton, who was just 4 years old, had been starving for days. The brothers realized the gravity of the situation and offered to help the family, but with a condition. Henry had to forget his oil dream. Reluctantly, Henry agreed, and they moved to Lancaster, where the brothers provided them with a farm. Milton assisted his mother in poultry farming and egg sales, while his father focused on tree planting and fish dam experiments. However, his parents' relationship deteriorated as his father left to chase yet another scheme. During the severe winter of 1867, Milton and his younger sister, Serena, became sick due to the Hershey farmhouse's inability to provide warmth. Although Fanny tried to care for her children, Serena's health deteriorated, and she was eventually diagnosed with the fatal disease scarlet fever. Despite all efforts, Serena passed away at the age of 4. After the loss of his sister, Milton decided at age 10 to secure a better future for himself and his mother, leading him to drop out of school and pursue his ambition. In 1871, Milton began his apprenticeship at age 14 with Sam Ernst, the publisher of a German-English newspaper. However, Milton quickly found that the work was boring, and he often received criticism from his short-tempered boss. His father had locked him into a 5-year contract with the company. After only a few months, Milton had had enough and decided to take action. He got fired after he deliberately caused a printing machine to break down by throwing his hat in it. After his setback, Milton's mother and aunt played a crucial role in helping him find work at a Lancaster confectionery owned by Joseph Royer. This was his introduction to the candy business. Candy making was a secretive process relying heavily on experimentation and traditional method, and the owner of the confectionery didn't trust Milton with it, so he was assigned mundane tasks like washing dishes and delivering treats. Milton's mother convinced the confectionery owner to teach her son candy making, and Milton quickly became passionate about it, all thanks to his talent for mixing ingredients and creating sweets. He gained knowledge in sourcing ingredients and setting prices, and became skilled in making various candies such as caramels, peppermint, and fudge. Although his father disapproved of candy making as a woman's job, Milton Hershey persisted and worked in the candy business for 4 years under Mr. Royer. With their new confidence and expertise, Milton and his mother decided to open their own shop, but the lack of sufficient funds was an obstacle. Milton's aunt and uncle loaned him $100 to open his business. With their support, Milton opened his first shop at the age of 19, but the secrets of candy making were closely guarded, and the competition was fierce. In 1876, the first ever World's Fair was held in Philadelphia, which was just 70 miles away from Milton Hershey's hometown. Recognizing the potential of the 37-country exhibition, he opened his first confectionery shop on Spring Garden Street in Philadelphia, expecting to draw a large crowd. Despite strong competition, Milton's shop stood out due to his innovative approach of installing an air chute that spread the aroma of his candies, attracting customers to his store. Milton's business was thriving, and he needed a bigger shop space to accommodate it. However, things suddenly took a turn for the worse when the Depression hit after the trade fair, leading to a decline in Milton's candy business. He sold his candies at wholesale prices to other shops, but then another issue arose. Sugar became too expensive. He borrowed money from his uncles, but eventually became bedridden from working too hard. His uncles refused to lend him more money and advised him to close his store. Hershey, now 24, had to file for bankruptcy and lost not only his business, but also his family's trust. Milton Hershey joined his father on a trip to the Silver Rush in Colorado in 1881, but found that it was over. He then found work at a Denver candy store that used fresh ingredients to make caramels with a longer shelf life. After memorizing the process, Hershey opened a shop in the most ambitious city, New York, but was rejected for a loan by his uncle. However, his Aunt Mattie believed in him and gave him the money. He worked at Hyler's Candies before opening his own shop, selling Denver-style caramels that became very popular. Although Hershey tried to diversify his business by adding cough drops, it faced stiff competition from Smith Brothers cough drops, causing his business to struggle and eventually declare bankruptcy in 1886. Despite this setback, Hershey refused to give up and remained focused on perfecting his caramels. Hershey struggled with the decision to return to Lancaster and asked his uncles for a loan to support his new caramel recipe while explaining how ingredients would be sourced locally. However, his uncles rejected him, calling him an outcast like his father. Desperate for funds, he approached his former accountant, William Lebtucher, for a loan to restart his business. He restarted making caramels with leftover supplies from his failed New York shop and sold them on Lancaster streets with a handbasket. He perfected the recipe that became a customer favorite. Soon, he established the Lancaster Caramel Company, and as his sales grew, he reinvested all his earnings into renting a pushcart and later a small production facility. Milton's Aunt Mattie eventually loaned him $700 for equipment after she saw his progress, but he had to repay it within 90 days. Milton Hershey's struggling business took a turn when a British importer discovered his unique-tasting caramel with a long shelf life and placed a large order, promising to pay upon delivery in good condition. However, Milton couldn't afford to produce and ship the order. He asked his bank for a loan of $1,000, but was initially rejected. The bank officer, impressed with Milton's small operation, personally signed the loan after rejecting it on behalf of the bank. After sending out his caramels, Hershey waited anxiously for a response from the British importer. He received a letter containing a check for 500 British pounds just days before his loan was due, allowing him to pay off his debts. Sales of his proprietary caramels, Hershey's Crystal A, then took off, and by 1894, his company had grown to several factories with thousands of workers, bringing in over $1 million in sales. Hershey became one of the richest and most respected men in Lancaster. With his team in place, he sought new opportunities. Milton Hershey's life was forever changed after he discovered something during his visit to the Columbian Exposition in Chicago. At an exposition, Hershey witnessed a demonstration of German chocolate rolling that inspired him to experiment with chocolate manufacturing. He bought the equipment setup from the demonstrator and founded the Hershey Chocolate Company, which he ran alongside his caramel business. Eventually, he sold the caramel business as its popularity was declining. Now, the focus is solely on chocolate. In 1900, Hershey sold his business for $1 million and immediately ordered the construction of a high-tech factory for his new company. Hershey sent trusted employees abroad to learn how to produce milk chocolate, which was believed to have been exclusively mastered by the Swiss. Most of the workers returned without success, while Hershey faced other challenges. In the early 1900s, Hershey bought 1,200 acres of farmland to build a new town for his workers due to increasing political corruption in Lancaster. With a 6-acre factory, Hershey struggled to mass-produce milk chocolate until he hired John Schmalbach, who discovered a process to create mild-tasting milk chocolate that could be stored for months without spoiling. This formula became the foundation of Hershey's chocolate, enabling mass production and lower costs. Hershey's chocolate bars became widely available and affordable when he lowered the price to 5 cents each by 1906, driving the company's sales to over $1 million. He then introduced Hershey's Kisses and chocolate bars with almonds, further boosting the company's success and leading to the expansion of his factory, which eventually became the world's largest. Meanwhile, the town of Hershey also grew, featuring modern amenities like homes, schools, hospitals, churches, amusement parks, a zoo, and an open-air theater. Hershey and his wife Kitty founded the Hershey Industrial School in 1909 to help underprivileged boys aged 4 to 18. The school was eventually renamed the Milton Hershey School and Milton transferred the majority of his assets and control of the company to the school. Today, the school owns 40% of Hershey's stock, making it one of the wealthiest private schools in the U.S. Unfortunately, Kitty's declining health led to her passing away in 1915 due to pneumonia. Devastated by the loss, Hershey became fully immersed in his work and avoided being at home. To take a break from this tragic event, Hershey traveled to Cuba and soon grew fond of the locals and their community. He decided to build a sugar mill and develop a town similar to what he had done in dairy. He constructed modern houses, schools, and health clinics for his workers and built the most advanced sugar mill in the country. This allowed him to import fresh milk from Dairy Church and export his sugar at a reasonable price. During World War I, Hershey's business was impacted by the scarcity of sugar and rising prices. However, he managed to stay afloat by utilizing his own resources and striking a deal with the U.S. Army to supply them with cacao and chocolate bars. This helped expand the Hershey brand globally. After the war, Hershey's chocolate sales exceeded $20 million annually. However, shortly after, Milton suffered the loss of his mother, Fanny, in 1920. Despite facing fierce competition and pressure to expand his product line, Hershey remained focused on selling only a few products. His sales continued to rise, reaching an impressive $41 million by 1929. Hershey retired as CEO in 1944 at age 87 and passed away a year later from pneumonia. The Hershey Company continued to expand and is now one of the largest chocolate manufacturers globally, with a market cap of over $44 billion. His determination and passion for candy making has made him a role model for generations to come. This is how Milton Hershey, a boy from a farming family, has left behind a legacy that continues to inspire many. If you're interested in discovering more inspiring and revolutionary stories, subscribe to stay updated.